Welcome to Chemistry. This video is an introduction for my 2023 to 2024 students at the MC2 Homeschool Co-op. The purpose of this video is to go through the syllabus together, describe the lab and the class structure, go over lab report expectations, and make sure everyone is prepared for day one. First of all, the book you need is the second edition, that's the old edition, of Exploring Creation with Chemistry. You can find that on eBay, half-price books, Facebook Marketplace groups, and stuff like that. Our chemistry class is a basic one-year high school level chemistry class. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I will briefly reply to students directly, but if it's going to be a long conversation, I will copy your parents on that. We do meet for 2 periods. We'll meet in first period and third period. We're trying something new this year. You'll get a break before you come back. So in first period, we'll be doing our labs. And third period, we'll cover subject material and working on learning how to solve problems. We'll complete 1 chapter every 2 weeks. As part of that, you need to read the chapter, answer the on your own questions, also called OYOs. The answers are right there in the book, so check them, make sure you get them right, and if you didn't, fix your mistakes. We will perform most of the experiments together, and then you will write up your lab report. A few times you'll have to do an experiment at home, but those are noted in the syllabus. At the end of each chapter, there's a set of practice problems. You should answer those on your own without looking at the answers. And then, depending on your parents' wishes, after you're done, either the students or the parents can check the answers. And finally, you'll take a test at the end of each module. The parent may choose to grade that test and just report the grade to me, or you can have the student turn it in to me and I will grade it. Please note that having the test graded by me is optional, but taking the test is not optional. It's part of the learning process. Finally, as a special little bonus, every 4 chapters there's a quarterly test that's cumulative that we'll also take. All tests will be taken at home and then turned in for grading or the grade reported to me at co-op. In general, expect to spend about an hour a day outside of co-op working on chemistry. This will vary from student to student. It's also going to vary from chapter to chapter. Moving on to the bottom half of the front page, there will be a points-based award system for keeping up with homework. Please note that all points and prizes are group-based. The points you earn are private. I'm not sharing that with the class. I'm hoping that the knowledge that if you and your whole class keep to the schedule, you earn points and therefore prizes more quickly will help encourage everybody to stay on schedule. I don't have the points and prizes ready yet. I want to talk to the students and see what is the most appealing and enticing to them. So on the second or third week of class, I'll bring the breakdown of how many points you get for each item in your homework and how many points it takes to cash it in for a prize. Required materials are the textbook, that's the second edition Apologia textbook, as well as the solutions manual. You'll need a lab kit, a couple of links are provided. And you do need either 2 binders or a notebook with a couple sections for this because I want your lab reports separate. So in one notebook you can have your on your own problems, your practice problems, all that stuff. And the other one you can have your lab reports because I will need to take those and grade them from time to time. Traditionally, science notebooks are marble lab composition books. I do not care if we follow that tradition or not, so you are welcome to use a spiral notebook, a 3-ring binder, whatever you want. In addition to that, you need pencil, calculator, ruler. Your calculator can be on your phone. I'll let you know when you're allowed to bring it out during class. And if you have longer hair, you do want a hair tie because we do on occasion use open flames or acids or something like that. Please note that showing work is required when you're doing your problems. It helps you do a better job and make fewer mistakes, and it keeps me from going crazy trying to figure out what you're doing when I grade your work. The minimum rule is this. If you need to use a calculator to do the math, write the numbers down that you put into the calculator and the number that the calculator gives you. For each lab we do, we'll do a lab report. And you should show up at class with that lab report started. That shows me that you have already read the lab. The part you should have done ahead of time is your name. Then you need the experiment name and number from the book, the purpose, and the hypothesis. Before you come to class, read through all the instructions. That not only lets us finish the lab more efficiently, it also lets us be safer. During class, you will continue to work on the lab report as you take notes, and you can finish up in class if there's time or as homework. So what you'll be doing during class is materials and procedure, which you only need to include that if we change it from what's written in the book. Then you will copy down your results in class, and as there's time, you will then analyze those results. The results are the raw numbers you record. Analysis is making sense of those numbers. Then we'll do a conclusion and a discussion, and we will note possible sources of error. I am asking you to have one lab report done before you come to class, and don't stress on the details, just do your best. Our goal is through the course of the first couple weeks to discuss this and refine the process to the point where within a month you've got this process down. I do want to point out something I do that differs from our official homework policy. As you know from the policies and procedures, you have 3 offenses before you are out of the class. So we don't want to get to that point. What I do for my chemistry class is I will give you an automatic 1-week grace period to your assignments if you show up to class with your lab pre-read and the lab report started. So that means you've got your name, experiment number, experiment name, purpose, and hypothesis filled out. As long as you've done that much, then you won't be holding back class too much by being behind on your work. However, I do want to point out that the points system to earn awards rewards you with more points if you get it done on time instead of if you get it done within the grace period. Don't stress if you're a little behind. You have that grace period, you can get caught up, but try to stay on schedule. I do grade every test, but I don't give a course grade. I'm just giving feedback to the parents because one of the great things about homeschooling is that final grades are definitely the parents' privilege. We're coming together and working as a group so that we can have that interaction and be able to help each other out, which means we do have to agree to stick to the same schedule. But after that, each parent can tailor the course to whatever's best for their student. So here's one example of how you could distribute points to give a chapter grade, because you don't have to have the only grade be the test grade. And there are a lot of ways that parents can adjust to meet the students' needs. Some of this will depend on what their plans for the future are and on their learning styles and stuff like that. So this is an individual answer for each family on what to do. Some options are when you take the test. It could be closed book. It could be closed book with a cheat sheet. Or it can be fully open book. After they take the test, you could return it to them and let them correct their problems for partial credit. If that is the case, let me know, because I do tend to actually write the answer down while I'm grading. So if you don't want that, please let me know. There's a lot of ways that you can tailor this course to suit your child's needs. There are 2 pages that refer to what we're doing lab-wise each week. The one thing you do really want to pay attention to is when there's something highlighted in yellow, like where it says chunk of metal. That is the column that says miscellaneous student supplies. And that's when you're going to need something beyond just showing up to school with your lab kit. So that only happens a few times, and I will try my best to send out reminders. But, sometimes I forget. The other time you're going to run into something in this column of miscellaneous student supplies is when it's a lab we're doing at home, just to make sure that you have all those supplies at home. These are typically the labs that don't require anything too fancy. You'll notice I am asking you to complete 2 labs at home before we start class, and that's going to be 1.2 and 1.3. And in 1.3, I just want you to take the measurements. You're basically using a ruler to measure a book. We're going to do the math together in class. For 1.2, I am asking you to try to attempt to do that lab and attempt to do the lab report just as a starting point. Don't stress about it. We're going to work on refining our lab report skills, but go ahead and give it a try. Occasionally, we'll be doing 2 labs in 1 week, as you see here on our first week, but most of the time we just have 1 lab per week, and occasionally we even get a week off of labs. And don't forget, if you do see that thing highlighted in yellow, please try to remember to bring it to lab, even if I forget to tell you. All right, this is the most important part of the syllabus. This is our weekly plan, where me or my helper will actually take notes and keep track and figure out how many points you're earning toward our prizes. I keep the total points in a binder that just I have access to, or my helper, but this will be in your notebook that we need to access every week. The first 2 lines are a little confusing because I really don't need you to start on the week from 8:14 to 8:18 at all, but I needed a place to write that I wanted you to try a couple of labs at home as compared to the labs we'll do in class. So I am totally good if you want to squiggle out those dates right there, because you can get everything there done in just 1 week, the 21st to the 25th. But what I am asking you to do is 1.2 and 1.3 at home. And again, 1.3 is only through the measurements. We'll do the calculations together. From then on, all the lines are normal lines. So our first week starts the Monday before co-op. It used to be 2 weeks before co-op. Now it's just the week of co-op. I really want a chance to work with you on the math and keep you guys from struggling with that. So we're pushing everything back a week. I'd much rather you have 1 week on your own at the end of the year you have to do than be feeling like you're behind on math the whole year. So on August 21st, by then, you need to start reading your book. Do 1.2 and 1.3 at home. They're super quick, super easy labs. You don't have to have any chemicals for them. And then when you come to class, I want you to have 1.1 and 1.4 started. I also want you to have that lab report that you attempted for 1.2. So when I see you on Friday, August 25th, I want you to have 4 lab reports started. 1.1 will only be started. We haven't done that yet. 1.2 is the one you will have attempted to completely do. 1.3 is the one that you started and recorded your measurements for. You're using the ruler to measure a book. And then 1.4 you will have started. That's just putting down the introductory information again. Other than that, nothing is due. You have no on your owns or practice problems or tests due, because that's our first week of Module 1. That means the second week is when you will finish Module 1. That's August 28th through September 1st. That's when you will be doing Module 1 on your owns, Module 1 practice problems, and Module 1 test. In addition, if you look under lab reports, you'll finish the labs that you hadn't finished yet for Module 1, which is 1.1, 1.3, and 1.4. I tend to work ahead on labs. So if you've just finished Chapter 1, in class that week, we will start Chapter 2 just by doing the labs. We'll do 2.1 lab. I hope this makes sense, but basically what this means is by Thursday, you'll have finished Module 1, and Friday, you'll turn all that stuff into me, and in class, we will do the lab for 2, so that when you're reading the book for Module 2 next week, that will make sense because you'll have already seen one of the labs. Again, a reminder, parents, if you choose to grade the test instead of me, use this sheet to record the grade so that I know that's been done. So third period is our classroom portion of chemistry. And while we're definitely going over chemistry topics and concepts, one thing we really want to work on this year is the math that goes with those concepts. I've seen it again and again that students who struggle with math, they end up falling behind on science because of the math, not because of the science itself. So I'll start each third period with some basic questions. They are chemistry questions, but they're going to focus on the math behind them. And not the hardest math, just the basic math. I want the people who are struggling with math to be able to really master it and do well with that this year. We will review the answers together, so it's a learning process. And I'll have the students turn in their work to me just so I can keep track of how everyone's doing. For those of you who are still working with math, if it's a struggle and you want to take extra time, that's great. And if you don't want to do that when the whole class is there, I understand. So I will have those questions available earlier in the day if you want to grab them and work on them before third period. But they really should just take a few minutes. It's just to help us catch any subjects where students are struggling and take time to go back and reinforce that before we move on to stuff that's more complicated and they get really lost. Finally, if you're looking for some help on math, I do have several videos up on my channel, which is called Miscellany on YouTube. Some of the recent videos will help you with scientific notation. The one that's probably going to be the biggest help is the one in the center of the top row, just called scientific notation. That explains what scientific notation is, and that's what you really want to grasp for this first chapter. If you're good with that, you can move on to calculating with scientific notation. That's what we're going to be working on and helping everyone get comfortable with. If you're looking at scientific notation and that's just really confusing you, you might want to back up to the video to the right of that one called multiplying and dividing by powers of 10. That concept, if you can get that down, will help you feel a lot more comfortable with scientific notation. Finally, these are 2 older videos on the bottom. They're a good year old, I think, maybe 2. They're what I did for a different science class in years past, but they might still be helpful. One is really long, but you can fast forward through it. It's called Converting Units of Measurement, and it helps you understand how to convert from, say, centimeters to meters, or feet to inches, or miles to inches, or anything like that. It is something you'll have to work on this year, and we will work on it together. And then you get some examples of that in the calculating speed video, which just shows you how to do math while using your units. That is it. I will see you guys on Friday, August 25th. Please come in with 1.2 lab report finished as best you can. We're not stressing on the details for that one. Have the 1.3 lab report started, including the measurements you got from your ruler and your book, and then just have the heading basically ready for 1.1 and 1.4, where you provide that basic information up through the purpose and hypothesis. That's it, guys. I look forward to working with you this year. Have a great rest of your summer, and I will see you soon. Bye.